Alrighty, we're doing a response to Lore Reloaded. The El-Aurians were never the victim; they were the target. All right, Eric, what do you think?
It's very interesting the way he lays it out, and I mean, clearly thought it through. Really,
it's probably been vexing him for
probably
years.
Has too much time on his hands. But anyway, the issue between the El-Aurians and the Guinan's race
and the Q continuum
and the Q, yes. He goes into it and it
theoretically
it makes sense,
but it's theoretical. It's all circumspection and
right. It's all his own takeaway.
Yes,
right.
I wouldn't call it a fan fiction because that's used as a derogatory term.
No,
but this is
that's his takeaway, and he reinforces it with examples because there was that,
and that would explain away that wonderful fucking thing. In Generations, the ribbon.
Oh no, he even addressed that.
Yeah,
because she was in the ribbon, and the Borg got caught in the ribbon, and
no, not the Borg.
No,
it was just a prison for the El-Aurians.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, the El-Aurians got caught in the ribbon.
Yeah,
right. And just the whole motive that they had was that the El-Aurians would pick up on changes in timelines and things.
But then that's also the speculation that that's what the Q are there for. Because the Q really don't have a purpose.
No, and they do like to mess with reality.
Yeah.
And if they do it, a little bit, they go a little too far with it, the El-Aurians will detect it and pick up on it.
Now, is that from...
But what
are
they going to do about it?
Yeah, but does all that stuff come from the Picard Season 3 shit, or...
No, it goes back to yesterday's Enterprise.
Well,
When Guy picked up on...
Well, no, because I didn't watch Picard, so I didn't know if... Because...
I'm sure it was reinforced in Picard, but I mean, it goes back to...
Oh, no, I know, yeah.
And their whole thing, because, I mean... there was some Q and the Borg ravaged her homeworld like 100 years prior.
Yeah.
So this is what, the 24th century?
Yeah. So it was
somewhere in the 23rd century, somewhere maybe around in Kirk's days.
Well, the refugee ship was in...
And where are the El-Aurians from? I mean...
The sector of the galaxy that Q threw them into.
Yeah,
remember
all the way in the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's where the Borg are from, or they originated. And
now, see, that's interesting.
And this guy suggests that the Q actually are the ones who created the Borg,
or augmented them, or helped them along a little bit.
Yeah, found a species that
was already into that,
suit their purpose. But it was the Q that was responsible for what the Borg essentially became, right?
So my problem with it is, it's like, okay, so you have the El-Aurians and they're in the Delta Quadrant and they're time sensitive or aware, and then you have what Year of Hell? What was that species? And they fucked with time all the time. Yeah. So I find that interesting. But then his assertion, like the Q are, I'm having problems with how he integrates the Q into reality, that some part of it. I mean, the temporal Cold War seems interesting. It just has never been developed to any point where it's entertaining.
Well, yeah, but no,
and that was Enterprise's big downfall, was relying on the future instead of trying to play the show for what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
And El-Aurians have a considerably long, lifespan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, presumably, virtually all of the surviving El-Aurian people would have been alive 100 years prior and been a part of this Borg attack on their homeworld.
Yeah. But Guinan wasn't there at the time.
No.
Yeah.
And so there clearly a number of them escaped. And,
yes. And
But what happened to the ones that were there? Were they assimilated?
Or were they just killed? Yeah.
Because, I mean, if this was like the first thing that happened, the first Borg encounter was with the El-Aurians, specifically because they were the target, then it seems to me that the Q's, directive would have been to terminate them. not assimilate them.
Yeah.
So where did the assimilation come from? Did that just develop over time? Because they didn't successfully take out every El-Aurian in existence, and so they're hunting them down, and eventually the assimilation just kind of developed, or what?
As a byproduct,
and the Q couldn't do anything about them because they'd gotten so big.
And that's the other thing.
The Q could have winked them out of existence.
Yeah, at any time.
Yeah. I mean, if it came to that.
Yeah. I do find that with science fiction, there's always a reason to be culling everybody all the time, or galaxies, or peoples, or planets. It's just.
But
I don't know.
When you look at episodic television, though, you're going to find these little inconsistencies, and if you're going to, really
they're big inconsistencies,
get deep into it,
Yeah.
So yeah,
I just question that he has the motivation for the Q, and because they don't seem to really. I think it's an interesting theory.
It is very interesting, and it's got us talking.
Yeah,
but yeah, so the Borg were created to eliminate the El-Aurians
because the El-Aurians could sense.
Because the El-Aurians could sense changes in reality. Yes. They were sensitive to it, and they would call it out. But then, what would they do about it? And what effect?
It's so like being a YouTuber, you just call it out. Then what? Like, who cares?
This ain't right. And, and you're like.
Okay.
Come across like you're a crazy person.
Yeah.
You're the only one who can tell.
And so why would the Continuum give a shit?
And what did they even in that conflict, war, whatever he mentioned that everybody else was involved in, and
the temporal Cold War,
and the El-Aurians didn't fight.
Yeah,
they weren't actively like
you would think that
fighting.
You would think they would be a part of it,
and they've.
So does that mean
they refer to themselves as listeners?
Yeah,
they were observers. They're almost like the watchers.
Yeah.
But more like a physical being that lives several hundred, years, and
listening is always better than talking.
Well, yeah.
But I don't know. So is he implying that the Q are part of the temporal Cold War?
Speaking of the art of conversation, who's in control of a conversation is the one asking all the questions.
Exactly.
So, and then listen to the answers.
Yeah.
Listening is very important, and that's what they were. They were listeners, and they had knowledge that spanned hundreds of years that they had observed and listened.
Thousands, probably, with their lifetime and their lifetimes and and their successive generations. Yeah.
So, however, Guinan ended up in the Alpha Quadrant.
Well, from generations, but
from being, I guess,
yeah. But then right there, like, wait, they're in the Delta Quadrant. So those little ships.
They're in the far-flung reaches of the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah. So it's like, what the hell? Seriously? How did they get there?
And so how did she manage to travel all the way to the Alpha Quadrant and make her way to the Enterprise, flagship of the Federation?
Even though it was the B.
Within 100 years' time.
Yeah.
I guess over a course of 100 years, you could do it.
And I guess because of time.
Look at Voyager. How long was it going to take them at maximum
years?
Yeah, so, okay, I'll buy that. 100 years, that's long enough.
Plus the fact, time zero, so she knows.
And if she was off-world when the Borg attack happened,
she could have
made her way out all the way to the Alpha Quadrant. Over that course of time. I'll buy that.
And time zero, she was already, knew of Starfleet or that bald white man,
But then they had that issue with the Q, though, too. What was that? I forget the details.
They never. It's not enumerated
because she knew the Q.
Yeah, and she says our dealings were 2 centuries ago.
Right.
So that means it's 22nd century. So
So 100 years after this, whatever.
100 years before.
Whatever issue they had with the Q comes back with the Borg to take them out.
Yeah.
So there's 100-year span of time there.
Yeah.
Which, doesn't really matter so much to the Q, but...
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what's...
So, whatever the Q was doing, whatever the mischief they were trying to make, between 100 years time.
And again, why would the Q give a fuck? That's what I'm just like, I don't see the internal mechanisms as to why they would care.
Well, what?
Just because you can perceive changes, and if you're not going to do anything about it,
right?
Or did they not want to, or did they were afraid of doing something about it?
No, that's what I was saying. What's the threat?
Yeah.
Why is it a threat to them?
Yeah.
So what?
Exactly.
They make whatever changes they want, and the El-Aurians can pick up on it all they want, but what are they going to do about it?
Yeah.
So what's the threat?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great.
You're gonna snitch on them and say, this was like this, and
snitch on them to who? Yeah.
And to who? Who's got authority enough to do anything about it?
Yeah, and
What are you gonna out the Q to the galaxy like a fucking conspiracy theorist? I mean,
I'm just saying.
Yeah. So it is a bit much.
It is. It's very interesting.
It is very interesting.
But there's a lot of holes in it.
It is a little far-fetched.
There's a lot of holes that need to be plugged up.
There's some, yeah, but yeah, the El-Aurians and the Q do have that history.
Yeah,
that's established in the lore.
Yeah,
so it's fun to explore it.
Yeah,
yeah.
I just need more. You know what I mean?
Right. It's just yeah.
There's too much that's just tangential, and it's just like it doesn't have any kind of basis or jump of logic, like Spock would say, without any
because I mean
information. You can't even give a theory.
Right. Yeah, a lot of it is pretty much speculative, yeah, which is fine, but the Borg were developed, created, whatever, by the Q to deal with the El-Aurians, and then they grew so large that they became a problem for the Q.
I don't buy that.
Really?
That's
over the course of 100 years?
Yeah.
I mean...
Because if you go into the Borg history, remember the Vaudoir?
Yes.
That was 8 centuries, and they were only in a few systems.
Yes.
So... there's the problem right there, is that the Q would have had to have started 1,000 years before, or at least 600 before they want to get rid of the El-Aurians, and just so I'm kind of not quite. Yeah. The more you pull at it, the more it falls apart.
And I mean, really, how he purported that the whole bringing the Federation into the Q and Borg conflict was to get them to do the dirty work and eliminate the Borg, so they wouldn't have to.
It seems kind of really, yeah. I think he's just drawing conclusions.
But no, this is his own takeaway from it, which is fine. No, not knocking it, just discussing.
Yeah.
But
it just doesn't.
Some of it doesn't add up, but some of it's actually very interesting. Yeah. It's how we all think, man. All of us Trekkies have some kind of theory that we think something this or that because it's unclear.
I enjoy the core concept of the idea.
No, it is a good idea.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't quite line up
with anything. With a lot of stuff. Because I pulled the Vaudoir card out, and that's canon, right?
Yeah.
So, but he knew that she was a Borg.
Yeah, it seems like the Borg would have been around for centuries.
Yeah.
Not just created
200 years. Yeah.
And even if they were, and they were, whatever faction of them was taken by the Q to use for the, but still, no. I think the Borg would have been in existence for
the Vaudoir
centuries.
Yeah.
And the Q just used them as a tool to achieve their goal to take out.
Yeah, if that's.
But I mean, was it to assimilate them into the Q continuum? Because that didn't sound right.
No.
You wouldn't want.
a species that can detect fluctuations in time and space to be
assimilated into the collective,
the Borg,
and then they would all be able to do it.
Yeah,
they would all have that because it would.
Yeah.
No, so.
Yeah, you got to think it out.
Their directive would not have been to assimilate. It would have been to eliminate.
Yeah.
And maybe the Q manipulated that directive in that case.
Yeah.
Which I would buy. I just made it up, but I'd still buy it.
Yeah.
And
that's more plausible.
There's just a little, the little details like that make it plausible. Yes.
The little details are the problem with so many things these days because they don't do the little details. They don't sit and think about it.
It's also superficial and just missing that.
It's the She-Hulk writing room all over again.
Yeah, because, that's what made Andor so great.
Yeah.
There's the little details they threw in.
Yeah.
And not just in verbally in the dialogue, but in the set designs
so that
and the details.
You can overlook plot contrivances.
Right.
Because
they fill it in with these little details.
And it's just so engaging anyway.
It.
Yeah.
And even if it's far-fetched, it makes it more plausible.
Exactly.
Because they just go that extra step to justify this shit.
Yeah.
And make it make sense.
So, tell us what you think about our response about the Lore Reloaded episode, video. And with that, like, share, subscribe.